Good morning to everybody. This is the third module of the SHIC program, and this is part 3A, and is regarding participatory planning in the context of risk. When we talk about participation, we talk about participation in general. We have to think what is the meaning, what we mean when we talk about participation. So the importance of community being involved in urban policies is absolutely recognized as essential. But we have also a variety of terms that are used when we emphasize this role, that is inclusiveness of community, empowerment, enhancement, responsibility, lately on co-responsibility, co-planning, co-design, etc. And if you look to the meaning of this word, you can understand how important, how vital they are for the urban planning, the participatory process in urban planning. But there are some risks that are related to their application and implementation. And there are some risks related, especially with the targets, with the goals, because it depends if they are too large, too small, too wide, too narrow, and so on. So the result sometimes it bursts out to be syndromes like not in my backyard, only my island syndrome. So we have to be really careful. This is why the first thing is and important is to identify what could be the different level grades of participation, and especially what are the goal, the purpose, and what we as planner or as politician or decision maker or designer in general, we are going to give as a main goal for our target. So when we talk about participation, we can range from information to empowerment. So, but when we talk about information, we talk literally about to assist people to understand better, give data, give objective information, balanced in the best sense, balanced information, and what we promise to our target, to our public, as a result is we will keep you informed. We will give you the needed information. The second step, the second grade, is to consult. When we talk about to consult, it's a rather one way, more strong rather than the two way of communication. When we want to consult, we want to obtain something from someone. And this is feedback. If we have, a plan and we want the community give us some feedback, what they think, what they perceive, etc. Or if we analyze the context in a correct way or in a proper way, or that is matching with the real need of community. And then help us, or if we just figure out some different alternatives. So what do we promise to the public? We promise that we will not only keep you informed, but we listen to you. We acknowledge your information, your aspiration. We will give you some feedback. We will provide some result where you can see that your idea somehow were input in, and or at least you influence some of our decision. The third steps is, the third layer, the third grade is to involve. This requires that you are working directly with the public through the process, and you must be sure that you really listen the needs and understand properly what are the needs or the ideas of people, and you will consider it. So the answer would be, sorry, the promise to the public would be, we will work with you. And because we want to be sure that your expectation, your needs, your aspiration could be reflected into our decision. And we will, let's say, let you know how deep you influence our decision. This is quite a good step, and this I would say that almost the best example of participatory design could be included in this step. The fourth is to collaborate. Collaborate means collaboration. So you are partner in the business, you are partner in the method with the public, and it means that you partner as decision maker, as administrator, as institution, or as designer. You partner with the public in each aspect of the decision, including when you start to develop some alternatives or options, or you try to identify preferred solution. What do you promise to your public? You promise that we will look to you for advice and innovation. We will incorporate in our decision, your ideas, and as much as possible. It means at the maximum level, When we talk, and this is the last step, and in my opinion, collaborate is common among specific target of stakeholders. It's not universal collaboration. Empower means to place my decision in the hands of the public. So I'm not the one, even if I am a designer, I'm not the one that is, or planner, I'm not the one that is going to design, that is going to plan, but is the public that will ask, draw, decide, and they will put and implement what you will decide. It's like, you know, is more like a form of referendum. You know, you decide and we apply exactly what you decide. This is, you can understand, is one of the most difficult steps. And I have to say that there are different reasons why participation that is becoming more and more and wider use and wide talk about is often perceived, at least, as less efficient than expected. Because it's not, let's say, a tool where you can recognize exactly where the borders are, but they are really blurred, and often during the participation, you have an inconsistency of the narratives that are given during the process and back to the real choices. So just briefly remember that we use the 5 laws, and the laws of 5 W's and 1 each, that is what, why, where, when, for whom, with whom, and how. So what I'm going to decide, why I'm going to decide this, where I'm going to decide, when it could be realized, decided, and realized, for whom I'm doing this, and with whom I'm doing this, and especially how I'm running this process. So when we talk about participation, again, remember that participation means is the action of taking part in something. And taking part means being part of something that is the first step towards being involved. So if we go back to the previous slide, when we say, you know, inform and then inform and involve, this is needed if you want to involve people. Instead of just rather inform or consult, you need to really act as being part of something. The participation has different nuances. Can be structural, non-structural, it can be direct or indirect, it can be long-term, it can be short-term. What it must be understood is that when we talk about participation, we are talking of a process that it takes long time and is looking to middle long term of outcome. Is not, let's say, what we call that is really useful and is important sometimes just to arise, to push some actions in participation, is not activism. Activism arises from some need, and the goal is just to solve that particular need now. So not rather than in the future. And it's not tactical urbanism. Tactical is even a tactic that involves people, but it's a tactic that has short-term result outputs. So clarifying this, we can just remember that to make a territory means to put together countless number of points of view, of needs, of interest, of requirements, and it requires a strong link between the citizens and the institution. Let's say that it's difficult to arise a general wisdom about participatory design, or generalist strategies to apply, because to find an operational framework that is universal and that can be adapted to every scenario, it's really difficult. Actually, in an era where participation and participatory process is always on the first step, on the first on front page, participatory design, it becomes more and more a challenge. And especially if we talk about participatory design in vulnerable areas. It requires long chain of planning actions, policies, design of different things and others. So one of the statements important to remember is, remember that now the paradigm is not plan for public, but is plan with public. So we are going to planning with public. In the context of risk, the best I think is talk about participatory planning and different case studies that will examine 4 different time in the chain of risk. One is not at all, not planning in a vulnerable territory. One is to after, participation after, in the design after the destruction. One is during something could happen or is a threat for the territory. And the last one is before anything anything happen. Of course, before anyone says something about it, we are not going to talk about community-based disaster risk reduction and community-based disaster risk disaster mitigation processes, which differ of course from regular disaster risk reduction or disaster mitigation, but is let's say always when we try to apply these things, of course they are useful, of course they are a starting point, but often, too often, they cannot be guaranteed success without bottom-up support. that only that only participatory process can guarantee. What I mean is that if you launch a community based disaster mitigation or community disaster risk reduction, you can, let's say, make people aware, and is absolutely excellent, aware of the risk, and they can understand how to perform to save their life, for instance. But again, is something that it stay at individual or group level, and you never can check really if something happened. And also this has no, it doesn't take into account the evolution and the development of the territory. So let's say that the ideal model that is here is there is a possible disaster, and there is a central government that, according with the local government, can, let's say, arise some plans that are surveyed, that are evaluated, that are verified by experts. And this goes to the community, to the population, to the stakeholders, to different groups. And there could be some agreement or disagreement, and there could be different options in the link and bonds between local communities and local administration and so on. But what is important is that the process is something that is running all together. And however, when we think about this, the truth is that is an ideal model, and this ideal model is run, even if not literally top down, is really pushed by the central institution, or by institution rather than a spontaneous activity from the communities. There are different examples. The first one, as I said, is not at all. What happened if in a territory that is vulnerable, it became vulnerable according with its development that was uncontrolled along years, like here, this is the example of Olbia in Sardinia, that was hit after the cyclone Cleopatra in 2013, and it caused 1,500 casualties and 9 deaths only in Olbia. And they were really huge cost, not only in terms of physical structures, but the social cost was estimated in 700 millions of euros. And 90 millions of euros have to be spent in the mitigation, and 300,000 in direct ordinary maintenance. So it was really a big disaster. And but there is, this is, it shows clearly what happened actually everywhere is just top down something, because there were some plans as protection, but they were not enough. They were not enough to protect the land, to stop the bad development, or to give or fix some rules how to plan the territory. And there is also another problem, is that the community grow fast, and in fact we had more, let's say, a crowd of random people rather than community that can have identity and so on. So what happened? The disaster hit the city. We had the results. And unfortunately, I have to say, after the reparation, there were another disaster, and a bridge that was repaired after that cyclone is broken again. So do nothing. The option 0, do nothing or leave things as they are. And what I mean saying that is that not involving the population, but just adopt some laws or some rules or technicalities, it leads only on disaster, unfortunately, or really severe effects of if the disaster hit. Like you can see here what happened to the poor sheep that are in the island without any help, starving there, and they need someone to rescue them because there was no other choice for them. And this is also true for some people in some areas. Then the second step is after. So after, the first is to talk about earthquake. So what happened if a disaster strike a land, causing losses, damages, destruction, and you know, earthquake. Let's say they cannot be predicted. They can be. We can arise probabilities. We can, of course, identify vulnerabilities to map that, but we cannot say at that time, at that hour, with that magnitude. And there were a lot of this kind of disaster that struck Italy. Italy is a seismic country, and we spend a lot of our national money in order to try to restore it. Also because, and here we are with the connection with cultural heritage, our historical centers are quite precious and full of masterpieces of art, and almost they are really invulnerable. So seismic, if not landslide or other disaster prone areas. So when we talk about the disaster, and I would like to talk about quickly, really roughly, about two disasters where we have different kind of participation and activism, and or participation or activism. So the first one is the example of 2012 earthquake in L'Aquila. We see in the third part, in the third case, we will see case studies that are related with Novi di Modena. And somehow we have this modeling which all the government and administration level, including some, you know, some more less structured forms of governance work together with the planners, with the engineer, with the architects, with the historians, and so on, in order to arise a plan, to arise some activities, to try to review what is the best map road for us if something happened, or what is our territory. In such a case, the reconstruction in Emilia-Romagna was by law, let's say, was realized following the path of, on one side, the physical reconstruction, on the other, the social, let's say, reconstruction through participation. There are two words. One is the experts. The other are the people, the inhabitants, and it works, of course, because we establish some links. But they are like two big blocks. What happened in Abruzzo is that every decision on the reconstruction was taken by central government. So the local government, they have no voice in, despite the fact that they were trying to have a master plan, the municipality plan, and so on. But was the reconstruction was decided in exogenous way, and let's say it's the two cases. There were some activism, of course, but it was not strong enough. The two cases show us as, let's say, you must have a coherent and coherent process in order to make it efficient if you want to reconstruct properly, or at least in sustainable way after a disaster. In one case, anyhow, in Emilia, all the actions were coordinated. In Abruzzo, they were coordinated only for the physical laws and permissions, etc. Then what it happens if is in during? We have another typical case when we have a big dam already built in a river basin on the mountains, and we have some phenomenal flooding in the flatland in the city. So what happened? To block the water by building a big dam on the mountains. And that was the case of La Rivenza River that was carried by Monia Architetto Guarino. And in that case, it was really interesting, the reaction of the population, because they didn't say no. They say only, why again here? Why again us? Is not that a part only the peak of the mountains, the peak, the sources of the river, but you are talking something that is really far from us. So why we can't together talk together and try to find a solution that is not another big dam that will destroy completely our landscape, and also probably would be a massive work without the forecasted efficiency and performance. They found a way how to do this. So the RIZZI bottom-up initiative after this big disagreement, and there was the process of participatory planning that was real participatory, because it includes experts and experts, stakeholders, non-stakeholders, individual teams, etc. And what the amazing result is not only that they defined a way how to build this dam or what kind of interventions for disaster mitigation they have to apply, but they change the plan previous that was taken by, it was under the eye of the national government. And usually in Italy, when is, from this top, you cannot, you have just to obey. It's something that you cannot say no, or, even the negotiation is quite hard. So in this case, it was completely successful, but it was, and this was the combination of activism, some tactics that were adopted by the administration and by the people, and then, but the results were through the participation, the real participatory process in planning. So there is the result that is, let's say, pointed out here is that it was really efficient. It took a bit long time, but we shift from the first schematic where here we have the top-down mitigated, top-down participatory model to, let's say, a model that is, putting in the center the people, putting into the center what could be done in order to understand the needs and to understand the problems. And that it was really, as I said, really, really long time, a sort of endless hours of survey and discussion. Last but not least is before something happened. Japan is a country prone to disaster. Everybody knows, like Italy, and all the last decades shown as a really terrible event happened there. So we focus in one of the area that could be hidden by earthquake and tsunami, and they have also other vulnerabilities. That is the Kochi prefecture in Shikoku Island. The damage preview are really high, as you can see here from the geographical form of the Gulf and the river. It's quite, the Delta and the river is quite difficult that once the water enter in, it's not to be kept there for months, and therefore with a lot of damages because all the flatland is built, as you can see here. So the decision taken was to think about different actions that could be applied to different time in the chain of risk. That means before to after. So we used to transform public space, indoor, outdoor. We used to apply some principles in order to transform the public space that is devoted to some fluxes of movement and so on. So that was the main aim in coaching, and this is a sort of top-down stimulated participatory model. That means the community, they know, they are aware, but they do not know how because they are few. We are in an aging society. We are in an area that is suffering from migration from rural or small centers to big areas and so on. So somehow this offers some opportunity also to support in a small micro actions the people, and to be in strict contact with the small activities that are run from local NPO NGOs. Let's say that in such a case, what we experience is that what we believe is that this kind of approach in the future would be the most efficient one, because let's say there is proposing different level of knowledge and different level of intervention, from the highest one from experts to let's say the more daily life experience by grandfather that is living at home or organizing dance courses. There is another problem that has to be considered, is the nature of information, is the nature of data, is the nature of the relations that are established among stakeholders. Because this is one of the first one that came to my mind is over consulting. In the participation, it could be that you consult the individual, you consult some groups, then subgroups of that group, NGO that are at the highest level, some different level of official administration. So, and let's say this is a sort of weakness. You can't compare all the methods. You can apply everywhere the same tool, and then you realize also that when it doesn't matter at which layer you are, if you ask people what they want, they will answer the same thing, and we can forecast a lot of it. Also you have to remember that we are talking about systems that are not complete. Moreover, they are mostly of them are over complex, over complicated. Here it is important to understand how to divide structural form of participation from non-structural form of participation. The first one, the structural one, is the non-structural, sorry, informal, is usually just from no to something, no to the bridge, no to the repairing of this, not to move the school over there, not new houses, not new, and so on. And the result, what is immediate after for this, that is insurging where there is such kind of activity, is no. So committee for no to that, no to the other, and so on. So from the beginning, there is an exclusion of dialogue. So people cannot talk to each other, and it just, you know, it increases dramatically, usually, and quickly, the conflict. Let's say the non-structural has no power, usually has no money, in a word. And if it's not supported economically, this kind of non-structural, informal participation faded away. I have seen a lot in my career, a lot of examples of it. There is also the structural form, and that it must be also conducted properly. Structural means that there is a plan, that there is in the mind, there is a timeline, a process, a schedule. There are clear, absolutely clear goals. There are clear way how to achieve some resources, but there is also sometimes lacking in this kind of process of feedback. So everybody is looking to his, her own track, and is lacking of feedback. And this is, let's say, this is sad, but it could happen. Let's say that here there is a proposal of a revised framework for the context of risk. We learned a lot of lessons from the past, and we can say that regardless of the scale that this area have, we need to launch participatory process involving stakeholders, decision makers, experts, citizens, groups, activists, NGOs, NPOs, and blah, 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 blah. And it is important to assume an interdisciplinary and integrated point of view. Different perspectives have to be combined in, let's say, not only one, but at least in possible outcome with some different probabilities, sorry. In the activism itself, for sure, is a big help to launch such kind of attitude and actions. And another thing is that through this kind of action, we can, you will see, they are always looking to the future. And also, let's say, policy and economy is not something that is outside to support, but it's something that is embedded into the system instead of, you know, just to be a frame of something. Finally, participation is conducted properly, really can make a decisive contribution. And especially in the reappropriation or refusing to appropriate again of space. But usually this action is implemented by people that is living there. So it's important, in my opinion, just a few words before the end, it's important, in my opinion, to understand that where the top-down decision are always political, and as a consequence, it means that they are fragile. Participation reinforces democracy and ensure its durability. Another word that we always forgot, but participation process, if you conduct it properly, it increases the durability of the features of the system. Another thing is that what this latest COVID taught us, with the lockdown of half of the planet, made even really evident the strength of social relations and links and bonds, in contrast with the brittleness and vulnerability of the built environment. And you can see it also in the expression social distancing. I hate this word. We are not going to have a social distance as I am trying to have social proximity with you, that you are listening the lesson, the one that are listening this poor lesson. But it's a problem of physical distance. So they're completely two different categories. And what we can learn really is that we need a lot of good education in order to increase our awareness. Therefore, understand what kind of responsibility we have, because otherwise we will be always here waiting for someone, for some gods to do something. And remember that, of course, always we have to cope and put together places that we are living with the complexity of the system. And is that what participation always wanted to be? So thank you very much. That was a bit longer, but we are going to show two small, in detail, two small examples where we will explain the participation through urban gaming.